Hi, everybody. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to hop on, as well as wait for my co-host here tonight, Chad Root, our Chief Building Official. So be patient while we give folks a few more minutes. Thank you. Hey, Chad.
Hey, Lisa. How are you doing?
Good. I was just letting folks know we're going to give folks a couple more minutes to pop on here before we get started.
Great.
Chad, I also made you co-host just in case something happens to my connection. Just
okay, great.
have full control over everything.
Hopefully I'll know how to use it.
All right, I know it is 7. We'll give folks another minute or so just before we go ahead and dive into things. Just for those of you in the audience, it looks like right now we have about 34 attendees. More hopping on here every minute, so we'll give you a rough idea of or how many of you are joining on here tonight. All right, we're 7:01. Let's go ahead and get started. So it's been a while since we've met with you remotely, and we really appreciate you spending some time with us tonight just to go through the city's process for preparation, submission, what to expect during your building permit review, and then after issuance. And we should have plenty of time at the end for questions. So looks like there's about 41 of you on for now. I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share. We do have a presentation PowerPoint tonight just to help keep us on track here. So again, my name is Lisa Ritchie. I'm the Fire Recovery and Planning Manager. You can see my contact information there below. Chad, do you want to say hello?
Yep. So I'm Chad Root. I'm the building official, and my contact information is up above. We will open it for questions later on when we get towards the end of the presentation. So if you have questions, we'll try to do what we can to answer them for you. But this is mostly as far as on the rebuild process. Items to look out for when you're dealing with contractors, and just kind of expectations as you start going on the rebuild process.
Great. So just want to make a couple of comments here before we start. First, before we dive into the presentation, we understand and appreciate that so many of you have questions about building permit fees, use taxes, and as most of you know by now, but if you don't, we just want to share with you that neither Chad nor I have authority in our code, nor does anyone on staff have authority under our codes to waive, reduce, amend any of those fees. And so that's a policy decision that City Council is, they're listening to you. Behind the scenes, we are doing some further analysis on our permit fee structure, and City Council may be talking about that in the future. So we're happy to share with you kind of how fees work, but just know that that's not really one of the items up for discussion tonight. But just wanted to share with you too, our website address is up at the top of the screen, and just want to let you know that pretty much everything that we're going to be discussing on the presentation is on our website. So don't feel like you need to take notes if you don't, if you'd rather just listen, that know that this information is here. And if at any time you have questions for any of us, we have our contact information. And on this page, for the rebuilding page, the contact information on here is the staff members most focused on rebuilding. So you can meet with us, contact us that way. And then we're also offering appointments to meet with staff here focused on rebuilding on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have a calendar invite here, so you can just schedule a time at your own convenience to meet with us, and we're making time for residents that way. But if those times don't work for you, just don't hesitate to reach out to us directly and schedule a time. And so just a little bit of an overview. Most of you all are in some form of probably permit preparation, and a small handful of you are in permit submittal. So these are the items that we're going to go through tonight: just how to prepare a permit, what to expect when you submit, what to expect during construction and inspections from the city side, and then finally your certificate of occupancy. One other thing that we want to note here is just on debris removal. So first off, on debris removal, just know that the lot must be cleared and pass its final debris removal inspection prior to issuance of a building permit. So we're happy to review a building permit while you're still undergoing debris removal, but we won't be issuing any building permit authorizing new construction until that debris removal permit passes final inspection. For those of you that have opted out, we've issued earlier today 254 private debris removal permits. So almost half of you have opted out of the county program. 56 lots were cleared. And then those of you that are sticking around in the coordinated debris removal, you all know this is managed by Boulder County. The city is doing inspections, so our building inspectors are out there in the field making sure that the work meets our own requirements. And then I have their contact information on here as well. We are also aware that the debris removal program that's managed by the county, I would say, is off to a rocky start. And that's putting it mildly. I think at this point, we acknowledge that. We do expect some more information from the county coming out. We were hoping today on some changes that they're making to the program, as well as communication. So just to understand that Chad and I can take some questions on the end about what we know, but that's really, we're hoping just to talk more about permit issuance tonight.
Yeah,
Chad, you want to go ahead?
On that note, just on the coordinated removal program, Lisa and I have very little control on that program versus the private program. We have a lot more control because they actually run through the building department and the planning, and we regulate them pretty tightly on that end. So, and just to touch base too, on lots that are cleaned, if you are, or you know somebody that's planning on selling their lot later on and not building, eventually we'll require that lot to be leveled out. Right now there's a, we call it kind of an open pit, but there's a dent in there. And the reason we didn't have homeowners fill that in, because the thought was, hey, it's dirt in, dirt out. If you're getting ready to build again, that's just more cost to it. But if somebody decides they're not building and they're selling it, and somebody doesn't build on it for a while, we will require that lot to be leveled out. It's just a courtesy for the neighbors, the people that are building. They don't want a crevice there for a while.
Do you want to take this one, Chad? Yeah.
So, you know, working with professionals of your choice. For those of you that haven't found a contractor yet, signed the paperwork, I'm proud of you. You're doing your due diligence on it. And I think that that's kind of a key, is to find a contractor that works best with you and your time frames. Currently lumber prices are pretty expensive compared to where they have been. Good news is I saw reports lately today that lumber prices are coming down, so that's good news. I just don't know how far they'll come down. Hopefully they keep coming down to where they were in the 2020 prices. But that being said, this is your house that you're rebuilding. Make sure you have the right contractor on it, working for you and has your interest in heart. Same with the design professional. I think that's going to make and break a difference of what could be a nightmare. They always say that a lot of divorces happen at the time of rebuilding a home because it's pretty stressful. There's a lot that takes place, fluctuating market, volatility of windows, doors, appliances, with COVID before, and just the prices fluctuating. It's tough to get locked in, but my recommendation, and I've built homes in the past, is take your time and to work with somebody that can do it right for you. And this is going to be a place that you guys are going to live in for a while, I'm guessing, and you'll take pride in it. So on that note, production builders, there's some out there. They're great. They can put up a home pretty fast. Work with your architect designer to design items in the house that you didn't have before. General contractors, we kind of talked about that. Pick somebody that's going to work good for you. And for those of you that are handy enough, as a homeowner, you can build your own home in the city of Louisville, and it's not a problem. We'll help you the best that we can, but it's always best to have a professional probably help you out in some areas. Surveying, so the lots will need to be surveyed, and Lisa will get into this a little bit more. The geotechnical report. So for the soils, what we're looking at is for the geotechnical reports, kind of how your engineer will decide how to design your foundation. If you need caissons, if the house can be unfooted because of the soil type. And what I'm allowing is, just because the lots are small enough, is if one neighbor goes in and gets a technical report, that other neighbors that are joining that lot could use that same report. Now, keep in mind, it's engineer pending, so an engineer may say, hey, that's great, but to validate my work and my design, I want one right where the house is being built, so they could always come back on that. And then, depending on which way you go, if you ended up going with a HERS home, you'll work with an energy rater. And that's part of the 2021 energy codes. You can go the full using the net zero, or you can just use a energy rater HERS to get like a 50 or make the building a better product as well. Okay.
So I know that there's a lot of conversations that have happened around rebates and incentives and things like that. And so if you haven't had the chance to check out rebuildingbetter.org, that is a website that is managed by Boulder County, and it's really intended to be kind of the one site and the one team that is managing all information for rebates, incentives, things like that. So you probably have heard about the Excel rebate if you built to the 2021 code. But our staff, Town of Superior staff and Boulder County staff, is all supporting this new website, rebuildingbetter.org, to be that clearinghouse for all of those, as well as any incentives. So, we've heard some heat pump incentives, solar gardens, rooftop solar, things like that. Additionally, on their website, they have some good information if you're interested in some of the higher performance homes like electrification, passive house, healthy homes, etc. And then they also have information on there on ignition resistant construction. And just one note on that, at this time, City Council isn't directing staff to bring forth requirements on ignition resistant construction. However, recognizing that, these homes were lost in a fire, some of you may be interested in hardening your construction, as well as some landscape things that you can do to improve odds in the future. And so there's some good information there. There's a lot of good resources on that, but there is at this point on that website as we speak. So I'll take this next one. So, kind of once you're starting to work with your team, starting to think about what you'd like to build, some of you, are pretty far down this path. Some of you are still in these early planning stages. Just know that there are zoning regulations that are going to apply to the construction of your home. All of the affected neighborhoods have planned unit developments, what we call PUDs, and these have zoning regulations, things like setbacks, height, lot coverage for some of them. A few PUDs have very limited architectural standards, such as certain type of shingles or, a mix of wood and stone or masonry. So feel free, though, to reach out to staff during those appointments or via email if you have any questions on how zoning regulations work. We have a lot of resources on our website for how to understand these for each different neighborhood. And then also, City Council authorized staff to approve what we're calling recovery variances. It offers up to 10% relief from any of these numerical zoning standards. So for example, if you had a 20-foot rear setback, we could approve up to 2 feet encroachment, so an 18-foot setback, so 2 feet being 20 or 10% of that 20-foot setback. There is a form on our website. It's easier if you submit that before applying your permit, and also recognizing that you'd want to get that approved before you go too far down the road with developing your permit plans in case we need to make some tweaks or changes. And to that end, we're also happy to review kind of your site plan and some of these items for confirmation that you're complying with your zoning requirements before you go all the way to the end of your permit submittal and find out maybe you are into your setback or you're over your lot coverage, and then you have to pay more money to revise it for your structural engineering and things like that. So please do feel free to reach out either through the appointments or through that email planning@louisvilleco.gov, and we can take a look, make sure you're heading in the right direction before you go too far. Chad?
Okay, so the building codes that you'll be building under are the 2018 residential building codes. Unless the property changes ownership on the rebuild, then they will be under the 2018 and then meet the new energy code. In the new energy code is the 2021 IEC, the net zero appendix RC. Is what they have to comply with. So where you're at, you're going to have to meet with the 2020 National Electric Code. That's a state code that's basically regulated by the state. We have to adopt it as a city in order to do inspections to speed up the process instead of having state inspectors come in. Fire sprinklers are no longer required. But you can add them as an option. And the beauty of adding them now as an option is the city will upsize your meter for 1 inch free of charge. They will give you the meter. I believe the pit, your contractor will have to install it. But that's free of charge if you decide to go with sprinklers on that. The energy codes. So you can opt down to various energy codes when you're rebuilding because you're in the fire burned area. The big thing, I think, the misconception is the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code is actually part of, it was a previous code, and we called it the Louisville Prescriptive Energy Code, which was modified from the 2018 IECC. And it basically just gave directions because a lot of contractors and staff just wanted a plain and simple way to make sure the energy code was adopted. So it varies. Actually, it actually varies from the 2018 IECC from what's written in the actual code book. So just keep that in mind. And it's pretty close to the 2021 IECC with amendments as adopted by the city without the net zero. So take a look at the two, compare them and see which way you're going. The benefit of going with the 2021 IECC as it was adopted and amended by the city Board of Appeals is it's pretty close to the 2018 Louisville Prescriptive Energy Code, but using the 2021, you're eligible for credits from XL Energy. And so there might be some offsets there that's beneficial just to go with the 2021 without the net zero appendix. The other option too is you could go 2021 using the HERS rating for net zero for your building. And at that point, the rate, you'll work with a rater, a HERS rater, to get it designed to those specifications.
And as Chad noted, that option is only available to opt down if you owned your home at the time of the fire. The fire sprinkler requirement is citywide, so that is not tied to who owned the home at the time of the fire, just the energy code. And so finally, kind of the last section here is lot grading and drainage. Our Public Works Department has an online map that they have published with all of the original grading and drainage plans, the as-built for these neighborhoods, as well as details for your design professional to rely on when they're designing the grading plan for your property. And so we will issue grading details also to be issued with your permit. And really the goal of that is just to, again, reestablish the neighborhood drainage patterns and make sure that everything gets kind of put back together again. As you've seen, after debris removal, these lots, you know, the grading is substantially different and things like that. So we really want to try and get you all back with these neighborhoods functioning properly with grading and drainage. And we're happy to answer any questions on that kind of as you're developing your permit with your professionals. Chad, do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So items that need to be submitted with your permit application. And if you're working with a design professional or a general contractor, this will be more for them to, because they're working on your behalf. So the architectural plans, they'll need to have a scaled site plan with dimensions to the property lines and setbacks. Planning and zoning is looking at, as well as building, to make sure that we're not getting too close to the property lines. And one of the reasons is for fire code and building code, to make sure that if one home burns, kind of like what we had take place, the next home won't burn under normal conditions, meaning no wind. So there's a setback requirement under the building code of 5 feet. In neighborhoods that are sprinklered, it's dropped down to 3 feet, but most of these homes won't be sprinklered. So you're looking at the 5-foot provision under the 2018 building code. And then we're looking at height calculations to make sure that the building complies with the height and zoning of that neighborhood. Engineered stamped structural drawings. So we'll be looking for to make sure that a Colorado licensed engineer ended up stamping the plans for the foundation and the structure. And if you end up doing a deck, that will need to be engineered as well, just because we've had some problems with decks in the past. Your geotechnical soils report, like I mentioned, you can use your neighbors as well. The engineer may want one on the site, but I'm fine with using your neighbors. It cuts down the cost, and you can go in with your neighbors and divvy up the cost of doing one of those. Manual J&D for HVAC systems, and then survey. And it may depend, and Lisa can hit on this a little bit more, on either an ISP or LSP on that survey. The other thing that we're looking at is fixture count form. So this is water fixtures. So if you're, I believe it's under 30, you can use the 3/4 inch water line. If you go above 30, you'll have to pay another tap fee. So try to keep the water fixture units, such as your bathroom, in your bathroom, the faucets, the shower, under 30. Otherwise it increases. So when you're rebuilding your home, try to keep it the same size, so there'll be no additional cost. Then this fire sprinkler plans, if you elect to add fire sprinklers, make sure that's in the set of plans too. And like I mentioned before, the city's willing to give you upsize your meter for free, which is usually a pretty good cost to increase it to a 1 inch if you're doing fire sprinklers. Ownership information, if opting out of the energy code, so you just have to mention that you're the original owner of the property that burned and that you're rebuilding it on that end. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just chime in real quick on the survey. So as part of your building permit submittal, you will need to submit a new survey from a surveyor. That survey can happen prior to debris removal, after debris removal, but we really just want to make sure that everything gets built back in the correct locations. It helps construction go a lot more smoothly. There's a couple other points in the process that your surveyor will come back out into the field. So again, you'll get a new survey, and ISP is what we call an improvement survey plat. And that's basically kind of everything that's on the site, you know, the previous foundation, any patios, things like that. We don't require that. You may desire to capture that information. And the land survey plat is your other option. And that really is just kind of the monumented survey and the property boundaries, making sure everything is correctly located. So prior to pouring your new foundation, one of our requirements is that a surveyor comes out and checks the location of the forms to make sure that your foundation is going in the correct place as it relates to your property line, so that you're not getting too close or even going over your property line. So that's our primary check for making sure that everything is getting built in the best location that's shown on your plans. And then finally at the end, we require an ILC, which is an improvement location certificate. That's a much cheaper survey than the ISP or LSP, and that's really just to have on for everyone's record exactly what was constructed as part of the permit. And so again, yeah, in the fixture count form, we have some FAQs on the website. If you have any confusion as you're filling that out, feel free to contact us if you're not sure how to use the groups and, you know, the kitchen groups and the bathroom groups and things like that. So if you're not sure, just feel free to, you can run those by us as well, and we'll double check that and work with you as you're submitting. And we do have record from the county on who owned all of the properties at the time of the fire. So I think just one thing to keep in mind, if it was owned by, you know, say an LLC or a trust or something, just make sure that we have some way to track that, you know, you actually represent that ILC or that LLC or that trust, just so we can confirm that you actually represent the ownership group. So just one thing to note on that as well. So excuse me, just as far as the permit process, our application process is entirely online. Don't feel like you need to remember these submittal types. We have instructions on all of our websites, but it's pretty simple. We do have a dedicated permit track for Marshall Fire rebuilds. So this gets you in a separate line than everyone else in the city who might be doing construction. It's just a flag for us right away as you submit. So be sure to find something related, you know, find the permit type related to Marshall Fire. When you submit, you're also going to be asked a series of questions like, which energy code are you opting into? Are you the original homeowner? Things like that. Those will just be those further triggers for us to know. So there's a couple questions you work through related to Marshall Fire rebuilds. You'll upload all of the required submittals, including all the things that we went through on the previous slides, surveys, geotech reports, all of that. You must have your subcontractors listed prior to issuance. Chad, those can come in just prior to issuance, right? We don't.
Yeah, just prior to issuance. In order for us to issue the permit, you will have to have all the subcontractors listed, or your contractor will. If you are the homeowner builder, you can put yourself down as the contractor for those subs. So that's kind of the difference. Is if there's a contractor working on your behalf, they have to put down all the subcontractors before we can issue the permit. If you're the homeowner builder, you can put your name down on all those subs. And later on, if you do elect to use a different sub to help you out, you'll just have to let us know that, hey, they are helping me out, and they do have to be licensed with the city on that. And no deferred submittals. So in order to fast track these permits through, we are asking that the plan package that is submitted by your contractor or you as a homeowner is complete. A complete package, we can go through, redline it, make some notes, give you a call on minor corrections, and we can get those plans out in a timely fashion. If we have to wait for deferred submittals, where the deferred submittals come in, they start taking away from other people's plan reviews and slows down the process. So we're pretty firm on no deferred submittals, meaning the framing package is this, or here's the engineering package. We do allow trusses to come in later as far as the truss package, because that's usually done by the truss company, and we'll take a look at that at inspection. But everything else needs to be pretty well in place. And then what we'll do is, when we take a look at your plans, we'll make comments on it. If it's basic, we'll just redline it and send it back out to your contractor yourself that, hey, this needs to be done this way. Instead of the dialogue back and forth, trying to get these corrected, we'll just kind of make a note in order to speed the process up, because we know that timing is everything to get the house built. As far as, hey, you have the excavators lined up, you have the framers lined up, everything needs to be perfect. Otherwise, yeah, you will lose them to another job site because they just can't wait, right? And then what we'll do is we'll have a pre-construction meeting with you, your contractor, and just kind of go down expectations, work hours, inspections, how that works, expectations, just to make sure it runs smooth and it's timely. And hey, when the contractor's ready for inspection, hey, the next day we're out there doing the inspection, time frames on that, and just expectations as far as what's to take place in the right of way or the street and other staging areas and options. So we'll go over that with them. And then we will issue the permit after the pre-construction meeting after we pay for that.
So yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Oh, okay. One thing too is the permit will be issued online. We are expecting the contractor, you to have paper set of plans and colored, because there's a lot of notes on it, on site, so the inspection team and the contractors know what they're building to and specifications. But so we do require a paper set of plans on site, and there'll be an inspection card on site with a permit on site. So code enforcement and other people know that, hey, this project is permitted.
Great. So review timelines. I know, Chad mentioned this a little bit already, but because we have a special permit track, your permit will be flagged and identified quickly as it comes in as a Marshall Fire rebuild. We are hiring extra staff and have consultant support to make sure that we get these permits reviewed consistently and quickly. Our goal for permit review is 10 to 15 days. I would say it's a goal. We're going to do our best to keep that as a commitment, but it can't be a commitment just depending on the accuracy of the permit submittal, resubmittal timing if we do need some changes, and then again how many other rebuild permits are in review. So if we get 30 permits all in on the same few days, we would expect that permit review time will extend out a little bit, but that is our internal goal, and we're doing our best to staff and train to have things out the door as quickly as possible. Any more you want to add on that, Chad?
No, that's just kind of our internal goal too on these permits here, is to fast track as fast as possible for everyone that was affected by the fire. Like Lisa said, that's our internal goal. We're sharing that with you. That way you kind of know what to expect, because I know I hate it when I go to someplace and you ask them what time frame is and they're like, well, it's going to be a little while. And it's like, what's a little while? So we're sharing that with you with the anticipation that, hey, it's going to be right around that time frame. But also, as Lisa mentioned, if we get a bunch of plans coming in, we're staffed to, move these through pretty fast, but we may not have enough staff if we get a lot of permits coming in all at the same time. So just be patient with us on that end, but we thought we'd share with you what our internal goal is.
Do you want to take this one, inspections?
Yeah, so the inspection process, just so you know, and if you're doing the work yourself as a homeowner contractor, this is good information, and we can help you out a little bit more. But this is probably good information just so you know where your contractor's at as well. So if the contractor, you request inspection before 4 o'clock the next or the day of, and you're ready for the inspection the next day, we will get to it the next day. So we have next day inspections, and we start our inspections at 6:30 to 7, and we'll go until about 5 or 5:30. So it's kind of where we're set at is we hired an extra inspector. We're hoping to get one on soon. We also have 2 code consulting groups to help us out with inspections. And so we should be timely on that. There should be no reason that we ever have to roll an inspection over. That way your contractor can move forward as fast as possible once the inspection's done. And we're basically just inspecting to, for many of you, this is the first time that you've owned a house where the county or the city was doing inspections. What we're doing is we're just inspecting it to minimum standards, meaning that what's in the building code. We're not throwing out there, hey, this is Chad's code, this is whatever, this is something the city's adopted. And we're just making sure there's what you're paying for, the contractor's delivering to you as a bare minimum. You can always go exceed that if you want to. I know a lot of homeowner builders that do exceed in a lot of different areas because this is their place that they're going to spend a lot of time in. But a lot of times we just inspect right to the code on that. The notifications will go to the applicant or the contractor as far as if it's a past inspection, if it failed, and the reason why. We have iPads that we take into the field, and when we're done with the inspection, we make a note and we email the contractor immediately. So sometimes the contractor's not there, but this way they get notified right away. And as a homeowner, if you want to be on that list, you could be part of that as well. You'll just have to talk with the contractor to make sure that your email's on that list. Past final inspections and final paperwork. So what we're looking at ultimately, we don't do a temporary certificate of occupancy. We just do a certificate of occupancy, meaning that, hey, a lot of times on TCOs, there's items that are missing, and there's a promise that, hey, these will be addressed later on. But we ended up just doing a CO on a lot of these properties is our policy.
All right. Well, Chad, do you want to speak to these too?
Yeah. So a lot of jurisdictions I worked for in the past had owners that had a lot of alternative construction methods out there. And I just want to speak to that if you're interested in doing alternative residential home as far as means of construction, meaning that it's not the typical 2x6 walls and it's all wood, such as straw bales, SIPS panels, insulated concrete foam, earth rammed home, tire homes, foam concrete, earth ships, and even modular homes. A lot of people think modular homes is those 2 pieces of home that come together, but realistically in the mountain communities, a lot of people use these modular homes and they go up to I've seen them up to 20,000 square feet in size where they put them together. And they can be custom made at the factory for your lot, the size of home that you need. And they're done in a controlled environment. And then you'll put down the foundation, and then when the home's made, they'll bring it out and assemble it. And it's pretty fast, and that's why in a lot of mountain communities they do it, because it saves on labor when labor's really short supply up there, and it's expensive as well. So, you know, if you're looking at any of these means and methods, or there's something else, feel free to reach out to me, and we can definitely take a look at it and see if it works and meets code. And then for the homeowner, it's probably more of the homeowner builder, but even if you have a contractor and you're really tight on money, this is what we can do as well, as we can kind of phase the interior finishes, meaning that we could give you a CO on the main floor if you had a bathroom, kitchen, and 1 bedroom. I know many of you have families, you don't need more than that, but this kind of gives you an idea, is that we could give you a CO for that. And then as you save up money or reserves to start working on upstairs or the basement, you can pull a separate permit and finish those at a different time. You see this a lot of times in the mountain communities, just because everyone's working and they don't have the funds at that time to build their dream home. But the ultimate outcome is you have a larger home, and you aren't all the way in debt on the difference. So we'll work with you on that as well.
So that is all that we have for you as far as the presentation. We do have a lot of time left for questions. If any of you have questions, please hit the raise hand button down at the bottom of the screen. You'll see that, just a little raise hand. You can pop that up and we'll happy to take questions. All right, so Audrey, you'll probably have to unmute on your end.
Thank you, Lisa and Chad, for this opportunity. We really appreciate the information. I haven't built a home before. Is it the contractor who submits the permitting documents, or do we as the homeowner do that? Thank you.
Yeah, so it depends on how you have it worked out. Most of the time, if you have a contractor working for you, they will submit the documents. And a lot of times they will actually pay the permit fees and everything else. On that note, if they do that, the permits, and say that you go astray with this contractor, it's not a good fit, and basically you fire them, right? What happens is they actually, if they go that route and they paid for it and they did all the paperwork, you and that contractor will have to agree that there can be a release on that permit back to you, because technically if they paid for it and they applied for it, it's their permit. And we've had this issue times before on remodels, where something goes astray with the homeowner and contractor, and the contractor is the one that actually owns the permit and won't release the permit back to the homeowner until they're paid. So it can go either way. If you have a good working relationship, and 90% of people do, where the contractor pulls a permit. But I just want you to be aware that if they do that on your behalf, they're kind of the owner of that permit, and they take responsibility for it. So we do have homeowners that do come in and pull the permit with their subs and their contractor on it. In that way, if something does go astray with the contractor, they're the owners of the permit. Does that help?
That helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, next up is Bill Packer.
Yeah, a quick question. So I've been talking to a couple of production builders, and they seem to imply that the permitting process will go faster with them because they're submitting the same model home multiple times. You guys, is that true? And like, what's the measurable sort of time savings with that?
So what they call that the master plan. So what it is they submit a master plan to us and we approve it. And then they'll put it on different lots and different configurations, but it's still kind of the same plan. It can go faster if they're doing a lot of homes in the city. If they're not doing a lot of homes and they're just doing some, it may not go as fast as they hope. We were talking with a group today on it as well because they wanted to submit master plans to the city, and they started looking at all the different basically cookie cutters within that master plan, meaning that they had a master plan of a house, what it looked like on the outside, but they had an option of unfinished basement. Then they would have an option of a basement that was partially finished. Then they had an option with a basement that had 3 bedrooms in it. And so each one, you know, whatever they were building would have to go through plan review kind of separately, because it's the valuation on it's different and the use is different. And so they were thinking, hey, maybe it's not going to be as fast as we thought it would be. Versus, you know, like if it's a tract home subdivision where they own all the lots, they have all the kind of the cookie cutter homes out there that you can choose from. So it depends. It can go both ways.
But yeah, I think to that point originally, though, we, as mentioned, we do have internal goals to get, you know, all permits out relatively quickly. So in some other jurisdictions, you probably could see a greater difference in time. In this case, we're hoping that's not the case.
Yeah. Did that help, Bill?
Great, thank you. All right, next up we have Larry Don.
Hi, this is Mrs. Larry Donner. So this is Susan Liu, and my question was, I don't understand about, in order to submit the permit, you have to have all your subcontractors. So when you talk about subcontractors, I'm thinking, okay, on just an interior remodel that I did a few years ago, I probably had maybe 8 or 9 subcontractors. So I had flooring, I had electrical, I had plumbing, I had finish carpenters, et cetera, et cetera. So are you expecting me to know when I submit that when my contractor submits the permit, that you want all the subcontractors for the rebuild?
So if your contractor's doing the work, it's the subcontractors that we're asking for would be the plumbing and electric, because those are regulated by the state of Colorado. And then also the mechanical, if they know who they are. And those are the only subcontractors that we're looking for. And the reason why is there's several of them that are regulated by the state of Colorado. And Colorado actually gives them a Colorado license. And we just want to make sure they're actually licensed under the state law.
Okay, so not every subcontractor who's working on your house then?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Like you said, that would be a lot of contractors.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure thing.
One more clarification on that too. It's prior to permit issuance. So you can submit your permit without having that information. We just need the information before we can issue the permit. So kind of in that intervening review time, we'll need to get that finalized. And also that can change throughout the process. So if your builder decides, you know what, I got to go with a different plumber, they can reach out to our office and we can swap those out. So, so just a little bit more on that. All right. Next up, we have Timothy LaFoley.
Me on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, Chad, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Hey, I got 2 questions. One, when counting the fixtures for water consumption, so a typical bathroom going to have 3 for a regular bathroom, one for the tub, one for the sink, and one for the toilet. What goes against those counts?
So it's not a one-to-one. And so when you look at the fixture count form, for example, like a bathroom sink is 0.7, whereas maybe a shower is a little bit more. So it's all, what it's really trying to do is gauge kind of water pressure and water capacity that can can happen through a 3/4 inch tap. And so it's not a one-to-one. There's some instructions on the website when you fill it out. There's some FAQs on how to fill that out. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out and we're happy to go through it with you.
Okay. The next question is phasing of the whole design, engineering, blueprint phase of this. We're getting through the design phase now with the architect, and the architect has sent what he has currently out for engineering work. Is there any benefit in sharing these drawings at each of these phases with the building department to say, okay, are we in good shape with what we have here, or are there any red flags for what we have right now, to sort of catch the stuff along the different phases as it's going through the design, engineering, and blueprinting stages?
So Tim, at this point, there's really not, because we don't have the bandwidth
Okay.
to go through. The best bet is once you get everything ready to submit, we'll take a look at it then. And that's where the plan checkers that I've hired and that are working for the city, I have them trained, unlike other cities and other jurisdictions, to actually reach out to you. And if there's some discrepancies or items, to actually reach out and kind of correct them if they can, or with your engineer, instead of just doing notes and sending it back, to help the process be as fast as possible.
Yeah, so the exception to that, as I mentioned, is we are happy to look at a site plan, just to make sure that your site plan configuration meets zoning regulations. That's a much quicker review than Chad's work on the full building envelope and architectural set. So you can send those to us before you get all the way through. We're happy to review that.
So you're talking the plot plan, right?
Yeah, just
Okay.
the site, just the
I got one
layout
of them.
of the house.
Okay.
Relates to the property line. So that we can do ahead of time, but the rest, I think we would want it all to come in together.
Yeah, and most of the time, Tim, too, is if you have design professionals such as an architect or an engineer working on the home, that goes by really fast. And 98% of the time they know what they're doing. And so that actually speeds it up too, as far as we take a look at their calculations, and because another set of eyes has looked at it, usually we're in pretty good shape most of the time.
Okay, so yeah. We should wait for the engineering phase to be done. If it's being done by a professional, wait till all the pieces are done and then put it in as one chunk.
Yeah,
with the application process is probably a safe bet.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it'll speed it up as well.
Good enough. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, sure thing.
All right. Next up, we have Denny Ferreira.
Yes, I have a couple questions. Chad, on the city had a 20 international residential code checklist that is in the city's code. It has on a special SR8 special requirements that the Master Homeowners Association, that you need a letter from the Master Homeowners Association showing that they have reviewed the plan. Is that still needed, or it wasn't in your list of stuff?
It's not. It's best to work with your homeowners
Right.
association as far as on the design, but we don't have any agreements with the homeowners associations where we have to have a letter from them first saying, hey, the design is fine. Okay. We will take a review of your plans and start moving it through the process, but it's best to work with your homeowners association if possible. I know some of them are just horrible to work with, but do what you can do in your part, and we'll end up doing the review. Okay.
And then also on the special requirements, it talks about a mine shaft locations and tunnels. I live up here on the summit, 830. Do I need a map to submit to you showing the mine shafts and so forth? Because there's none up here.
Yeah, if you could just, There's on the city website, there's a map with mine shafts throughout the town. And you can just put a dot where your house is and where the mine shafts are on that map. And that's all that we need. Basically what we're trying to do is just kind of owner beware. You know, you're investing a lot of money back into a home, into a project, just so there's no surprises to somebody, you know, that, hey, they had a little settling or a little subsidence, you know, in the property nearby. And they're like, what the heck, is there a mine shaft here? And the city never notified me.
Okay, yeah, I lived there since 1991 when they first built it. So I mean, I know there's nothing there. And then you said if the home is in a trust, I have to show that I'm still the homeowner, the owner. I put the home in a trust in January because just financial reasons and so forth. What do I need to show that I'm still the resident? And as long as I'm living, I'm going to be the resident there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think we'd actually contemplate it if someone puts it in a trust, but really if you were the owner on record before and you can show that, you know, you manage the trust and you, it's still, you know, you're still the same. We're not going to try and be unreasonable on verification. We need to see something that just reflects that transfer. But that you really, as a human being, are still the same owner. It's not necessarily tied to the legal entity that owns it, if it's really just a transfer of ownership to a trust or something like that. So that shouldn't get in the way, but we're happy to work with you offline a little bit on that, just to make sure that there's no issue.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Guys, very informative tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Paul Prosky. Paul, you'll probably have to unmute on your end as well. There you go.
I've got it. Hi, we had a McStain built home in 1992. McStain had destroyed the plans. The city had told us they destroyed the plans. We got a lead on possibly finding the plans, architectural plans for us. We did, which makes it a clearer path with insurance. It makes it a clearer path with, I'm hoping the city, I realize there's lots of changes in codes from 1992 to 2022. But if we have the architectural plan for our house and we don't plan to really alter it, I would assume that would make, we could assume more likely that we should have no problem. We don't have to spend a lot of money on architecture. We were told that maybe just a designer and get the engineering things done that the city would require, which is why this is great and we really appreciate this. Would that be true, or am I missing something? It seems like a lot of the questions the city might have, we just talked to, I'm sorry. We just went out today to the FEMA Boulder County group, and they actually were so far off from what they had told us. And we told them, well, wait a minute, we have a walkout. Why would you bury our walkout? So we have to take it back in and level everything out. Well, anyway, because we're ready to start trying to build. We were told, and well, they said, well, safety of children and small pets and people wandering around. I go like, well, that was all discussed ahead of time. There was going to be an orange fencing around the lots, you know, and people would be safe because people had asked specifically for walkouts. They are talking about, you know, that they, you know, we're going to level it at a 2-to-1 grade or 1-to-2 grade instead of leaving our walkout. If we put it back on that property in the position where it was at, our grading and everything should be relatively approved by the city. I know you guys looked at 10%, but we wouldn't be moving anything. We want the same house, basically the same location. We were, Chad, it was interesting. They said that the caissons probably are going to be cut off, I guess. at 5 feet below the surface. And I said, well, what do we do about them? And they said, well, they have to move because you can't have disturbed soil. But other than moving it like 3 feet away from the old caissons, am I right and everybody else right that this should speed our process along and reduce our architectural design costs?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two phases. I'll speak on one part, and Lisa, if you want to speak on the kind of the grading. If you have an old set of plans, that's awesome. What I would probably just have you do is work with a design professional to put in blocks or notes that, hey, instead of, I'm guessing at the time it might have been 2x4 walls, they would just do a cross section and show a 2x6 wall for the exterior walls, and where they meet the 2000, if you're going 2018 energy code, showing the insulation in there that meets that criteria. And then also where your design professional or your engineer would engineer that house out. The Engineers Association came up with a different wind speed for the region than what we had in the past. I think in the past, it was maybe when the house was built, they said they thought it was 90 mile an hour, 3-second gust is what the house had to be built to. Basically, they upsized that to 145, and then there's a formula which brings it back down to about 115 mile an hour, 3-second gust for the homes, residential homes. So I think that what you could use is you could use that design or those plans for the structure of the house and kind of the design, and then you'd have somebody add on to it as far as the newer codes, going with the 2x6 wall, and maybe instead of because lumber is expensive, instead of with the 2x6 you could go 24 inches on center instead of 16 inches on center, which is required by a 2x4 in order to get the R values in there. And then just a new foundation that's done by an engineer to hold up the home. But I think you could definitely do it. It would have, I think it would speed it up a little bit. Yep. So I'm fine with that.
Okay, so it sounds like you have flexibility to get us from 1992 to 2022, like our insurance says, in the like and kind place you lived in. And then we can, battle with them a little bit. We're not, really veering off course except for code and requirements. That seems to me, that's my thinking. And I just wanted to make sure that the city was good. And it sounds like you are on that thinking pretty much.
Yeah. So I'll just add a couple more thoughts on that. So from the city side, I think your design speed potentially being a little faster saves time, from our perspective. We still have to review everything. So the review time, we're still going to make sure that everything meets the current codes and, translating everything and the setbacks. Yeah. And we re-review all the information, but it sounds like there could be some speed, time savings. From a grading perspective, again, the requirement is that you come back in and reestablish the grade that the original neighborhood was intended to be built at. So we will have to look at that information the same as we do for everyone else. Hopefully, though, the information that comes in on your grading plan and the site plan will help demonstrate that. You will have to have some additional information as it relates to grading and height on your permit submittal. Go ahead.
Oh, when we talked to them today, they put in a call to the top two people at DRC, I guess, who is the contractor with Boulder County and FEMA support. And they said it could be worked out that they will not. I said, how much simpler would this be if the city knew, except for removing toxic 6 inches or whatever is needed, we're keeping the same grading percentages and ratios and the position of the house. That should be kind of a almost no brainer, as much more simple for you guys to review, like you said, when you ask, well, what did you change? No, all we did was remove the old foundation. We kept the grading, and I guess they might have, well, we'll use for an example, they use 6 inches of removal of toxic, soil or whatever they found. And otherwise everything's the same.
Yeah.
That I would think the city would be happy to know that we're maintaining exactly. I was happy to hear you guys say we want the same grading for the neighborhood.
Yeah, so you'll have to show on the permit plans, a little bit of it varies. I mean, their level of precision out there isn't going to be that great. I mean, I think it's anywhere from 3 to 6 inches on topsoil, and then you'll need to just demonstrate that, you're getting positive drainage back out there. But we're happy to work with you, again, kind of offline more specifically to understand how your permit process relates to your lot, so we can continue to work with you on any questions that you have on this.
So it sounds like from both Chad's point of view and yours on both issues, we may simplify and expedite the process better. And on our end, we don't have to do as much design or architectural except meeting codes. If I need to get, or the contractor needs to get, let's say they wanted to call up and say, what do we need to do to take Paul's house and make it 2022?
Yeah, you can schedule an appointment.
Of the 2021, whatever, up to that code from 1992, bring it up to date. Are you guys able, is there somebody that can actually talk to, or they just have to submit it and then somebody denies?
So Paul, what they could do is call up, or they can schedule online to meet with us we're meeting with people on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
So that's part of that.
Yeah, so they could give us schedule an appointment, and we'll meet with them in person and kind of go over the set of plans and what they need to do, and in order to fast track it for you, on your end.
All right, so that would be the thing. Who's going to tell us, okay, we've got this same house, we need to drop it in place again, move it a little bit for caissons, but then we just need to know, what do you guys expect around that dropping of the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we can meet with your contractor, or you, architect, engineer, whoever it may be, and kind of go into the specifics of, as far as, hey, when that building's or when your home is submitted, what we're expecting to go along with the original set of plans. And it's going to be pretty basic, since you have the main set of plans. It'll just be, the details will be a little bit different as far as the bones of the building.
Okay, that's great. And one last little quick, just real quick. Is there, I know, there's setbacks and everything for bigger houses. Is there a minimum size house that Louisville has?
Minimum only as it relates to building codes for room sizes and clearances and things, but it's going to be a lot smaller than probably what most of you would be rebuilding to.
So it could be
offhand, I mean, it's in the couple hundred square feet probably, right?
Yeah, you're talking about what's the smallest home you could build?
Yeah, that's basically,
yeah,
if we go a different direction.
Yeah, you can, under the building code, you can build, basically, it's almost like a tiny home, where there's just a, if you wanted to do 1 bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, small living room, you could do a really small home if you wanted to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I felt like you were going that way when you said there's alternatives like modular homes and other things. So if we can't work out financially and insurance wise, I'm older, I have severe health issues, I'm disabled. The other option, if we find out we can't go the route of dropping our original house in, is we could build a much smaller home, which, helps everybody, the earth and everything. And we didn't think there was a restriction for small size.
No.
Much,
So, yeah, I think,
much anyway.
yeah.
I mean, we can't put a a little trailer over there and do it. But I mean, as long as it's a, reasonably meeting living conditions, Louisville would support saving the earth and helping with smaller homes, right?
Yep, we're happy
Okay.
to, yeah, absolutely. There's no requirement for that.
Thank
bet.
you.
All right, so
Thanks, Paul.
next we have Bill and Corinne Johnson.
Hey, good evening, Lisa and Chad. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We sure can.
All right. First of all, I want to say thank you to the both of you for all the hard work that you guys have put into this whole rebuild and debris removal process, and making it and giving us all the resources that you have to get us to the point that we are right now. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank the both of you and your team members for all the hard work and what will likely be many more long days of hard work ahead of us, but looking forward to it. I do have two questions for you. One, I think, is a little bit more administrative and should be quick. And the second one is just to get clarification on some comments you made earlier tonight. The first one being, when your contractor does submit the permit application, will there be any visibility on your portal for the homeowner relative to that permit request?
Yes, so as soon as you submit, you will see kind of as it's tracking through the progress. If you publicly, like a public facing, you get limited access, but if you have a login for that permit, you'll know kind of which departments reviewed it, if they've sent it out for comments, if a certain department has approved it, and where it is tracking all through that.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And then my second question goes to the 10% variance that you had mentioned before. Can you give some more guidance as to when it is applicable for our contractor to submit that form that you had mentioned previously
Sure.
versus not having to submit it?
I mean, technically, you don't have to submit it in advance of submitting your building permit, but it will add kind of a layer of a hurdle through your permit review process. And in most instances, we envision approving it, but in case there's a concern or a problem with the design, we would recommend you kind of get that done early in the process so that as your level of investment increases on permit development, that you have that part locked in. So really, there's a form on our website. We are trying to get those turned around within about a week. I think so far we're on track with that. But if you have any questions, it's helpful just to shoot us an email when you submit, or even give us a heads up in advance of that, or give us a phone call. I'm happy to work with you. Sometimes we may need a few tweaks along the way as we review those. So I would say as early as you know that your site plan, kind of the plan that you'd like to build as it relates to your lot, as soon as you're confident in that decision and you know it needs a variance, get that in and you can get that part locked up.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
All right, so just letting everyone know at this point, I don't see any more hands raised. So we do have more time if Chad and I are happy to hang on if any of you have additional questions. So we'll give anybody a minute here to raise your hand. Again, it's the raise hand button down at the bottom of your screen. We'll give it another minute, and if not, we are happy to let you go a little early. And as we've mentioned here a couple of times, we do just want to let you know that we are more than happy to connect with you and answer your questions. Don't feel like you need to wait until your permit comes in to get these questions answered. Reach out ahead of time. We are getting a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls, as you suspect, and so just from time to time an email gets missed or a phone voicemail doesn't get returned. So please just you can bug us again if it's been a couple days and you haven't heard back from us. I see a hand that just went up. That's David.
Hey Lisa, yeah, quick question. Can we request a variance on front setback and the rear setback of one lot?
Yeah, I think given certain circumstances, we'll consider front and rear setback variances together. The one that's the most problematic, just heads up on that, is the 5-foot side setback, as Chad was mentioning earlier. When you get closer to your property line than 5 feet, with the building codes, construction costs get more expensive as it relates to fire rating. So that's the one that we're really encouraging folks to stay away from, a side setback variance if you're at that 5-foot line. But yes, you can combine variance requests together.
Perfect. Yeah, we have no issue with the side, and it's really just a post of a rear covered patio, and that's the edge of the setback, right?
Yep. Yeah, we do. We measure those to the post. That's provided the overhang isn't more than 3 feet.
Perfect.
Great. Any other questions, David?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, David.
Next, we have Heidi. Heidi, you'll need to unmute on your side. Hopefully you can find the button to unmute. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, Heidi. Don't see any other, oh, well, she lowered her hand, so maybe I'm going to assume that she doesn't have any questions. Heidi, if you want to change your mind, please feel free to raise your hand again. We'll give it another minute. There's no more hands raised now. Oh, we have Heidi again here. Let's try it now. Heidi? Again, it looks like a mute. You're still muted on your end. There it goes.
There you go.
Give it a minute on the audio.
Hey, and as Lisa mentioned before, while we're waiting for Heidi's audio to connect, yeah, if you reach out to us and don't hear right back from us, feel free to try to reach out to us again. Just because, like Lisa said, we're getting a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, and things do get dropped once in a while. So feel free to, hey, if you didn't hear from us in a day or two, feel free to drop us a line again. We're not going to think that you're bugging us at all. It's just we're kind of busy with all the rebuilds, and we get pulled in many different directions, and something might have got dropped. So.
All right, Heidi, it looks like we're still struggling. We can feel free to try again in a minute. I'm sorry. Also, feel free to just email or call us tomorrow with your questions. Craig, looks like you have your hand raised. Feel free to unmute and go ahead.
Yeah. So this is probably not a direct question for you, but just with all the debris removal going on and contractor trying to get in to rebuild, is there any coordination of that, or is there going to need to be any coordination of that?
Yes. Chad, do you want to take that one?
So yeah, there'll be a little bit of coordination taking place on that. I don't know what your circumstance is at this point, but kind of what we're feeling is that there will be lots right next to lots where debris removal is taking place. And the first part is, basically excavation. They're going to start digging out your foundation. They may be bringing some dirt in, they might be bringing some dirt out, for if you have a basement in place. And so there will be some coordination that needs to take place. I think where it will get a little more intense is when people are framing, and there's other job sites that are framing as well. And we have multiple contractors because we have more bodies than equipment on the rebuild process. That will get a little more tricky. And we kind of have a game plan on that. We're going, in many neighborhoods, we're going straight to the road where certain materials can be put, people can park their cars in front of the lot that's being worked on. And if there's no work on the adjoining property, they can park in front of that property as well. Where it gets a little tricky is 2 properties right next to each other, different contractors working on it. There's going to be a demand for space for bringing in trusses for the boom truck, cement trucks. So there is kind of a game plan, but it's also where the contractors and owners need to kind of figure that out, and we can help out as well.
Yeah,
Probably-
we've hired, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I was just going to say, we've hired some additional inspectors as well as kind of construction oversight out there to help kind of referee between contractors when things get tight. But just know that it's going to be a challenge, and it's something that we're going to be aware of. But we're all just going to have to cooperate and do our best, including the contractors too. So.
And also, Craig, on that, you know, for the first couple homes that are being built, you'll probably have to have generators. I'm not sure when Excel's going to have live power back to those sites. So I know on the first couple homes that are getting permits, they will have to work with generators out there in order to have power.
All
Okay,
right.
well, thanks to both of you for taking your time out of the evening to do this. We appreciate it.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Genevieve.
Hey, this is actually Gary.
Hi, Gary.
I guess you guys are doing this seminar for the builders in a couple days or something.
We are.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of curious if there's any special message you have for the builders. Like, is there anything weird going on in Louisville compared to maybe what they've encountered before? Or is it really just make sure you press that button and make sure it's a martial fire permit?
That's a good question. So yeah, for those of you who will just throw this out, let your builders know that Chad and I and Public Works are going to be doing an in-person event similar to this, more geared toward the contractors, on May 18th, Wednesday, May 18th from noon to 1 at City Hall. So that's what Gary was mentioning, if you haven't heard that. And then Chad, I'm not sure, I guess, from my perspective, it really is just making sure you select the right permit type and knowing that you're going to be expedited and prioritized. But once construction happens out there, all of that generally is going to remain the same. But do you want to add more to that?
Yeah, I think that probably the weirdest part on this is just building without power for a little bit. It's a lot of contractors aren't used to that, because usually there's temporary power that they can hook to, you know, for the air compressors and the saws and the equipment. And then the other weird part about it is what we were just talking about before, as far as different contractors on lots right across the street, space for staging of materials when that comes in. It's going to be tight with different groups working, because if you think on usually new subdivisions that are being built, it's all one builder, and they kind of have a game plan where they start on one part of that subdivision, then they work across, and they have a lot of staging area. We don't have that since all these lots are owned by different individual people. So that's going to be the weird part. That's going to be the hard part. And we're working on figuring out places for people to park, such as their subcontractors, where they can park, maybe take a van in with the general contractor. So the street's not too cluttered. During this whole process too, we just, like I mentioned, we're painting the sides to keep the center of the road open for emergency services such as ambulances, fire trucks. In case, you know, somebody gets hurt, we can get in there right away with all the staging materials and other trucks taking place. It's going to be interesting, but I think that we'll work through it. So that's going to be the hard part for a lot of the contractors when you talk about weird. But as far as inspections, yeah, we'll be out there the next day when the contractors call for inspections, just to try to get these going as fast as possible and up in a timely manner.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to starting the rebuild, that's for sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up we have Sam.
Yes, thank you. Is there going to be a database that is going to represent the drainage plans for a lot specific as all these permits are coming in? I know there's going to be a lot of different surveyors, civils that are going to have their hands in the kitchen. And I know a lot of clients of mine are worried that water might be getting dumped from one lot to another without coordination.
It's something that we're certainly going to be paying attention to and reviewing on every single permit to make sure that the site plan and grading plan comply with, you know, kind of the original intent of the grading out there. I mean, in all reality, we're not going to expect you to regrade to the precise level of grade, height, and slopes and things on your previous lot or on your lot with a previous home, recognizing the shape of the footprint of the house shifts how all of that works. So when we say, you know, reestablish a grading plan, we recognize that things will shift around. But so from a database perspective, on our website, we do have the original as-built and the original grading plans, drainage plans for these neighborhoods already uploaded. If you need help finding that, you can send us an email and we can link it out to you. One other thing that we're hoping to do is, as we get some more of these permit plans in and approved, and we work with these early architects and builders to get good permit sets that are easy to review and have everything that we like to see, we will share those out for other folks just to know, like, okay, this is how they want to see this information, this is how they want to see this information, and we'll share kind of those gold star applications out there so that folks can work from those as well. So that's something, as we get further in the process, we'll begin to share.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, next up, I see Lisa Hughes. There you go, Lisa.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to unmute for a second. Just a fast follow-up question about the whole staging and stuff for the rebuild. So I live in Cornerstone, as you know, Lisa Ritchie, and our cul-de-sac is very small. Like even pre-fire, if you had, you know, a couple trucks in there from UPS or whatever, all at the same time, it was really difficult. So I know you guys are hiring like people to sort of manage the day-to-day whatever. Are they going to be taking that into consideration? I mean, in terms of like maybe staging stuff around the corner if other people aren't using it, where there's more space or something? Because I'm just thinking if 5 or 6 of our 14 houses are going at the same time, there's going to be no room at all in there. So
absolutely. So the cul-de-sacs themselves, we're not going to stripe because you're right, it's really tight with those property lines being really skinny along the cul-de-sac frontages. And so, you know, provided construction activity isn't occurring on some of those lots around the corner, we will do our best to make sure you all have room you need to get underway. But we will have, you know, kind of staff out there that can kind of help, again, like referee that and share space. But the cul-de-sacs honestly are going to be a challenge. And again, hopefully there's some of you that are going in with shared contractors and you can actually help, you know, if your lot hasn't started yet, maybe your neighbor can do some storage of materials on your lot while your contractor's waiting to get started. So it's going to be a challenge, but we're open to, you know, I think kind of reasonable ideas on how to help.
thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's try Heidi one more time here. Hopefully this works. Heidi, it looks like you're still muted on your side. Heidi, I'm so sorry that you're having technical problems here. I'm not sure what it is. Please just feel free to email us or call us and we can get your questions answered. I'm really sorry that it's not working for you tonight. Next up, I see Paul Dinkelmeyer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We sure can.
This isn't necessarily a permitting question, but in terms of the debris removal, I noticed some of my neighbors, I opted into FEMA, but there's been some private debris. In the event of damage to sidewalks or curb and gutter, which I unfortunately have seen some, what happens there? Is that something that's going to be replaced later by the city, or does that fall to the responsibility of the homeowner? I know there's heavy equipment going in and out, and I imagine there's going to be probably damage all over.
That's a good question. So, we are aware that there's going to be, I think, some damage as folks go through. If it's, relatively minor and things like that. We also have videoed the neighborhoods before all the work started. So we do have record, I think, of kind of the previous condition. But if whoever damaged the sidewalk, whether it be a debris removal contractor, the FEMA crews, or your own contractor, the expectation is that gets repaired, particularly on the sidewalks. The streets, we are aware that I think just the increase in traffic volume may require, and kind of heavy equipment and things, these streets I think at some point are going to need to be repaved, but City Council and Public Works haven't made the decision yet on kind of timing of how that occurs and when that occurs relative to reconstruction. Chad, do you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, I think you did a good representation on that. I think, on the private debris removal groups, before they can get a final inspection, they do have to work something out with Public Works if they did damage the road or the sidewalk on that end. I'm not sure how it's going, if there's an escrow or if they just have to repair it right away. In my opinion, I don't think they should repair it right away because we're going to have more construction on it and it'll get damaged again. Not until the home's been finalized out or the homes nearby have been finalized out. So that's what I know on it. I don't know if that answered your question, Paul.
Well, I guess it sounds like there hasn't been a determination as to what to do with that. In the event there is, and again, I just noticed with my neighbor, there was like a nice chunk taken out of the curb and gutter, which I assume will have to be fixed. And I guess, and the concern is, is that something that, at the very end of the project, they'll say, we'll get a bill from the city saying, oh, and by the way, here's a bill for repairing your sidewalk.
No, I think the intention is if it's really clear and obvious, like the private contractor that was doing debris removal is the one that damaged the sidewalk, then they'll be expected to repair that before things get too far down the road. But the roads and kind of the general wear and tear that isn't really attributable to kind of any particular contractor, that discussion hasn't happened yet. We're still also trying to work through kind of our own reimbursements with FEMA and things like that on what they're going to cover, just knowing that these streets sustained some damage from the fire itself where cars burned and things like that. So I think the broader repair discussion hasn't really happened yet. But if we can, again, point to kind of significant damage that occurred by a contractor that we can identify, then the expectation is that gets repaired sooner rather than later. All right. So yeah, absolutely. We are at 8:30. Paul Prosky, I see your hand is raised again. I'm happy to take another question from you if we can be pretty brief to let folks go. So I'll unmute you, Paul, and go one more time.
Just had another question. Did you find it? Oh, my wife, I'm sorry. We can make this real. She was looking for the fixture. She couldn't find it on the website on the fixture and the values like 0.7, you said, and all that. So that's good. I have a question for Chad. If you're building a house and you have a lot of potential for adding things or whatever, that 3/4 and 1 inch line seems like an important feature, but it's way more costly. Is that what the deal is for the 1 inch?
Yeah, so if you're right now you're at a 3/4 inch water line, and if your fixture counts go above 30, such as you're doing a larger home or you're doing more bathrooms or wet bars, steam showers, it can kind of go on and on, right? What you add to it. Once you're over that 30 on the fixture count, then that will require a 1 inch water meter. And because you're using it other than for sprinklers, there will be a large increase, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's in, I think it's tens of thousands of dollars.
My wife,
To
my wife just found it. It's 40, you listed it as 41,800.
yeah,
FAQ section of it.
yeah, water is gold. So yeah, so if you go over that, it's a huge increase. And that's why we kind of mentioned that, hey, if you're putting in sprinklers, you get that for free. You don't have to pay for that increase because it's so expensive.
So sprinklers don't affect that.
Sprinklers
Yeah,
don't trigger that. Yeah, but even if you go over 30, if you go over 30 fixture counts, even if you're adding sprinklers, the 30 will trigger the tap fee increase. So,
And,
all right.
Okay, thank you very much.
You got it. Thanks. I see Barbara. If you want to, we can hang on one more, and then I think we're going to have to call it a night. Go ahead, Barbara.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. I don't have the FEMA form in front of me, but I seem to remember it asking if we wanted to have driveway and sidewalks removed. Should I have, I said, yes, remove them because I was worried about people damaging the sidewalks, but should I change it to not remove the city sidewalk?
So the sidewalk they're talking about on that form is private. So it would be maybe a sidewalk connecting your driveway to your front door. So FEMA won't be removing any of the public sidewalks.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we really, really appreciate you all spending time with us. And again, feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. Chad, do you want to add anything else before we?
Yeah, I think just reach out, set up a meeting with us on Tuesdays and Thursdays if you have questions, and we'll try to help you through the process the best that we can, or meet with your architect or builder. Like I said, it's it's a process. And number one, just building my own home several times and other homes. It's one of those that don't rush through the process. Make sure you have in your building what you want, because it's going to it's something that you're going to live with for a while, or it's something that you'll end up selling down the road, and it'll be a good investment for you. Being in Louisville, close to Boulder. So take your time on it. Don't feel rushed. If there's a contractor telling you, hey, you have to sign, beware, and maybe talk with another contractor and just get multiple bids and meet with multiple contractors. Don't just go with the first one that shows up at your door. It's kind of like those the hailstorm, when those guys show up at the door wanting to replace the roof, they're ambulance chasers. So yeah, do your due diligence, and try to enjoy the process as much as you can, because if you don't, you'll be hurting. So yeah.
All right. Well, take care, everyone, and reach out with any other questions.
Yeah, and we're here to help wherever we can.
Have a good night.
You guys take care.